I remember just, ugly crying into my mom's shoulder. They're flying.
I'll be right here. Okay, Casey.
Yes,
We are joined today by one of our favorite people on earth,
absolutely.
the one and only Matt Dufilho.
Woo!
So let me start. I'm going to give some of Matt's cred here, but first of all, probably your biggest accomplishment, you've raised two amazing children. Two incredible children, which we love. Well, as we're all fans of dads and dadhood and all the things that go into that, and you've been an inspiration to me. You've done an amazing job with those kids. But work-wise, you started your career as a physical therapist. You kind of made your own way as a video production guy, like in a major health system, like created your own role there, which filled a major need, especially in healthcare, which, healthcare video traditionally is pretty terrible. So you've really helped kind of forge a new path for that industry, which is amazing. You've done commercial work for lots of industries. You've won tons of Addy Awards, some of them with us. And most recently, you started a YouTube channel with your daughter called Ellie's Garage, got thousands of subscribers, like tens of thousands of views on your videos, which has to be an amazing experience.
Yeah, that combination of stuff is interesting because I kind of tend to separate Ellie's Garage out from my professional production, even though people will tend to say that's one of the things that kind of separates us a little bit online, which is cool. But you talk about being a dad. That entire project, while it's cool video-wise, and if you like cars at all, that's really cool. The whole thing really was a dad/parent project. It was to show our daughter Ellie that she could put herself out there, give her some confidence, and tease any latent engineering or squash them completely. But it was that was really the whole goal of the channel in general, and it has accomplished that goal, including all the other goals of making the car possible and everything. And so yeah, I didn't know that was going to be part of the talk, but I'm so glad because it's something that I spend a lot of time doing, but it's great. It's great. I'll find a way to worm that into more conversations as we keep going.
Awesome. Well, I think it's really cool because you have made a career for yourself doing things that you love. Video kind of being the first thing, and now that you've even found a way to bring your daughter into it, and what an inspiration for entrepreneurs to be able to say, hey, I can have success doing things that I love. So that's amazing. And
and even I don't mean to cut you off, Matt, but that I can have success doing things I love, but even things I'm not doing now. Somebody thinks, I'm in a career now and this is going to be my, career. That was very much a thought pattern, I think, for our parents' generation. It's very different nowadays. And my favorite question for somebody to ask me is, I like doing video production too. How should I do it? And I said, well, or how did you do it? Well, I said, the first thing you do is go get a physical therapy degree. First thing to do, absolute first thing. Do that. Then, having something you're passionate about and interested in, especially nowadays, with all the things that I'm sure we'll talk more about that. It's pretty exciting because you're just willing to kind of give it a shot and work at it every day. You can do a lot.
That's cool.
So cool.
That's cool. All right, let's talk a little bit about inspiration for a moment, but maybe not in the traditional sense. So we've been on set with we call you Doof. We've been on set with Doof for over a decade, a long time, and you are a never-ending stream of impressions and movie quotes, and it just makes it so fun to be on set.
Quick, mouse droid, go.
Yeah, I just know what this.
Yes.
So I was so worried there. I was like, man, whoo.
Okay. So let's do this. Because of that, I want to know. So part inspiration, part I know you love movies. So your favorite movie, okay? But a caveat here. This does not have to be like Schindler's List, like highly produced, dramatic. My preference, because I've heard you quote so many things, would be like your Weekend at Bernie's movie. What would be your go-to there, Rachel Green?
that is I'm going to take a little bit of a side out from that, but I'll give you what we're talking about here. It is so hard for me to nail, one movie. And for me, it really goes like, it's not necessarily seasons in my life, even things in a year. I have these moments where, growing up where that movie and the way it makes me feel and the story that's told, like sticks with me for a while. And then, another one comes along that takes up this chunk of lifetime. And so I have these milestones of movies and that type of stuff. Old school stuff, it's like, Rear Window, Your Clock in the Back to the Future. But it really does boil down to, and a lot of things we're going to talk about, I feel like, are going to be stories. And it's really, whether it's just something that just hits me the right way, but it's stuff like even more modern stuff like The Matrix, and even just weird kind of offshot movies like Royal Tenenbaums and more recent stuff, the new True Grit and all that kind of stuff. There's and then some directors and people who do stuff start repeating themselves. But those stuff like first movie I remember bawling in the theater at was E.T. I remember like when they all take off and cry. I remember just ugly crying into my mom's shoulder. They're flying.
I'll be right here.
So it's hard to say one, but it really is those moments because and the thing is, and that's why I like those movies, because I go back. And when I watch the movie, I really do, like, it'll shoot me back to the place I was when I watched it. It's that house in that city, on that street, in that living room, the lights were like this. It really does hit that moment in time for me. It really is a feeling. So I apologize sidestepping that question, but that's my
makes total sense.
It's a hard question. Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. So you mentioned Royal Tenenbaums. Obviously, Wes Anderson is a guy that I love. I'll see pretty much anything that Wes Anderson makes, just because I love his style. And a Wes Anderson movie immediately, just because of the music, because of the colors, because of the way that it's shot. So,
Yep.
What filmmakers inspire you? Who are some of your favorites that you don't miss their stuff?
So Wes Anderson is on there. I have over time, before I really knew who they were, the Coen brothers. Just about anything that the Coen brothers, I do that. So movie wise, that's kind of where I tend to land a lot with those kinds of, and those kind of movies are very different. But they're just. It's such great stories. And if you want to talk about what's inspiring, for me, and through those same movies and everything, I don't know about you guys, but music is a huge thing for me. And oftentimes like we were talking about, a favorite movie and everything, the soundtrack or the score that's written for a movie will put me right back in that same mind frame. And so something that's really like, even looking at projects and that type of thing, if I'm not careful, because so much for me the music will inform how it's gonna feel and what it's gonna look like and the pace of everything. So what's funny is if I look over like the course of like years of work and everything, I can tell you the soundtrack I was listening to when I did a project, because I will have picked music that sounded like it, and so that's kind of almost sometimes I have to be careful or I'll fall into that. So when we have a big project coming up, sometimes I like to find the music early that fits the project, so I start really pumping that into my head. So I'm not just enjoying some other soundtrack or something, and that starts dictating how I start, because it really does become like a lifeblood for like even my thought patterns and life for like a solid month of like what I'm listening to and that type of thing. So yeah, I find myself inspiration wise, I definitely know more composers than I know musical artists. Like if we're playing a game where you're gonna play a song and we're gonna name the artist and everything, I will absolutely bomb, unless we hit movie soundtracks.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be okay. So yeah.
Yeah. So next time we do a project together, we probably need to say, can you go watch this?
That's exactly what we need. That's exactly what we need to be doing. We need to find a theme score or a theme movie, and go from there. That'll get me set.
Very
That's
cool.
awesome.
All right, so you started talking about projects there. So if you would, we've worked on a lot of projects together, but just thinking in terms of small businesses, production can be pretty overwhelming for a lot of small businesses. So in terms of that, where should a small business, if they're going to be producing a video, creating a video, where should they focus their effort?
It really is stories. I work a lot right now. My 9 to 5 business is working doing production for an economic development group. So every video I do usually is either in support of businesses, but telling a business's story. And that's the first place to start. I know most people, I think most businesses would start on the nuts and bolts side and say, okay, well, what camera do we need to get and that type of thing. And those questions will have to be answered at some point. But the first thing is to talk about story. And to say that and then walk out of the room is kind of like, well, thanks. That means absolutely nothing to me. That sounds good. But for me, so when I talk to either a business or something and we talk about, what's the story, it's not just what you do as a business, but it's how do you do it differently. Because a lot of times that can be just who you are and what you try to do in your business. And if you're in a business and you do the same thing as everybody else and you're not trying to separate yourself, we've got bigger problems than a video, So for me, that's the first step of where to start, because from there, it's really about, so when we get to the nuts and bolts of actually doing something, it's finding somebody, if you don't do video production, if you've never done it before, and you want to find someone to partner with, it's the idea of finding somebody you can trust. You want somebody who's going to ask you questions about, what are you trying to do? What's your goal? You want somebody who's has a mind of solving a problem for you. With a video, because video really can, and so that's the other thing I've learned really since we started working together, more than 10 years ago, officially, is strategy, being strategic, not just in your marketing, but all the way back from production, really being strategic about the story you're going to tell, story and strategy. That's kind of the main thing. Just start researching. And the great way to research is go on YouTube, go on Instagram, go on Facebook for video and that type of thing, and research other people across the world in your space and what are they doing. Find something that is interesting to you, that you think you might do it, and copy it. Don't literally copy it, but find what can work and start from there. So I think we'll talk more about all these kind of levels, but that's a good place for businesses to start when they're thinking about video, at least.
That's awesome. Great advice. So, okay, let's say I've got a story to tell. Like, I know what story I'm telling, and I've hired somebody I can trust. Like, there's so many different, like, if you have a video as a business, there's so many different things I can do with that video, so many different places I can put it. So when you're creating video for, like, business, do you create with a certain platform in mind? Like, are you like, okay, this one's going to be for YouTube, this one's going to be for TikTok, this one's just going to be for the website? Or do you kind of create with like a more multi-purpose feeling?
I think I would say, are we thinking about deployment when we're conceptualizing a video? Always, every single time. For me, there's always three. We kind of touched on this already. There's three questions that we start every project off with. Who are we talking to? What's our goal? What are we trying to say? And the third one is how are we going to put that out there? Because the third one, how are we going to deploy it, is really influenced by 1 and 2. When we know, depending on who we're trying to talk to and what we're trying to say, different platforms can mean everything. Different platforms can mean different demographics, different ways of interacting. If we were just putting something out on YouTube versus a targeted Facebook ad, or if we're going to do something on TikTok, those are three very different ways to deploy something. And we have to think about that from the very beginning. We've shot a lot of things that we want to work in a lot of different ways, but we have if our main goal is this targeted upright Facebook ad that we want to work for mobile, it's going to be great that it'll work watching on YouTube and everything, but we've got to think from that as our primary goal. So we're gonna, every shot we frame up, we're thinking, is it working? If we're just thinking in a standard wide frame aspect and that's all we're thinking about, we are going to get burned on our main goal. And so it's something that has to work. And so so we start reverse engineering that. Okay, we're going to shoot 4K so we can push in tighter at the end, and it just everything goes back to those first two questions of who are we talking to and what are we trying to say, and that really influences the third key question of how are we going to deploy this. So absolutely, that's another thing. If you want somebody who's going to help you think, if you're talking to somebody who's going to do production, and you want somebody who's going to be thinking about those things and helping you through that, I think that's a lot of hopefully what you can bring somebody in that's going to help you out with, more than just like, oh, this would be a cool shot. The cool shot should come like 10th down the list. Once you have everything set, then cool shots are great, but it shouldn't be the first conversation point.
That's
Very
cool.
cool.
Yep. Okay, so speaking of deployment and those kinds of things and channels, you have grown Ellie's Garage YouTube channel. You've got thousands and thousands of subscribers. Really cool things have happened in terms of people reaching out to Ellie, and from people who manufacture stuff for that Ford Falcon. So all kinds of cool stuff has happened. So what are some tips you would give for someone who's trying to grow a YouTube channel?
Piece of advice is to build a niche. Basically, figure out who you are as a channel and stick to that. Think about, and it's very much the way we work on, campaigns. Really think about who your videos are for. There's a very specific person you're making this video for. It should, number one, be yourself. So don't get me wrong. I would say while it's cool to look at analytics and see what people are doing and who's coming, and that's good to be able to kind of massage what you're doing. You need to be kind of true to what you're trying to do. If you're doing something completely based off of trying to make something just for an audience, I think you're going to lose yourself and things that kind of make your videos unique in yourself. So be willing to take that. But saying that, think of, when you're producing your own stuff, who are you making it for? And really make it for that person, and more people from that audience will come in. So that's the thing. The other thing that's the main thing is don't stop. You will have videos that we just had one 2 weeks ago. I was like, this is really good. We did a really good video. And the thumbnail, it was like, que bella. I mean, nailed it, right? And it was the worst video performance-wise we've made in months. I mean, just absolute bleh. And so it's easy to get frustrated at that, but keep going. That's the other thing. But then it kind of keeps going back to that. Tell stories in your videos. If we're going back to talking to businesses here, businesses aren't making videos, necessarily, well, although you can. But the idea is make videos that you would be interested to watch, but also, if you're doing something about a service, tell a story about that service. At the very least, and again, I'm not going to walk out of the room saying that, at the very least, how whatever that is can impact someone on the other side, or what goes into doing it, seeing something personal, from something that people don't think about. Just an extra bit of detail that actually provides a little bit of information on who you are as a person is great. But some of the last things is what we'd call primal branding. It's basically things of, and to boil that down, it's just basically, and it when you watch shows, you watch YouTube channels that you like, it's those repeatable things in a video that would be missing if you'd say, well, why didn't they say, get out there and go do it? Don't do that. That's so it's ways and typically the ways those generate, it's you can have it to where you're going to plan. It's either a way you open your videos, it's a way you close your videos, it's something that happens in your videos, it's a way you transition between things, it's things that you say, it's things that you do, it's and a lot of that starts generating as you start doing your show. It's the reason to kind of keep doing it, because it's something you say when you do something dumb, and if you didn't, that becomes the thing. You'll make merch that says, Holly, how duty, and because I said it every time I flip over something in the warehouse, and it's stuff like that that seem silly and that type of thing, but it's things those are things that kind of bring people into a kind of community that watch your videos. So create those, and sometimes those take thinking about, but sometimes they kind of generate. So create them, but also look for them. Anyway, so that's again from a 7,000 subscriber channel. There's some thoughts from the last 3 years of creating a channel.
I love that so much, because regardless of what channel people are on, they're usually there maybe to learn something, but primarily people are on social channels to have fun. And so it's those little elements that makes it fun, that makes them keep coming back because they know it's going to be a good time. So I love that so much. That's great advice.
And another thing that I learned, I hadn't thought about this before. Remember that YouTube is not episodic. Everybody gets in the idea of thinking, oh, this is part 3 of my series on, this is, whatever channel, episode 29.
No, they haven't seen them.
No one goes to YouTube to say, I'm going to see the next episode in this. People will sometimes watch your content religiously, and then they're gone for a month. And then they come back, oh, that's right. Nobody goes to YouTube watching it. Everybody comes to YouTube when it's like, they gravitate back to it. They look and see what's popping up in their feed. They gravitate onto other things. And it's that thing of so much, we want so much for people to see our content and to see and to want the next one. So we're going to, and while that can work to maybe bounce people onto and keep a watch time running, if you're interested in that, watch that. That's about as episodic as it gets. But nobody is coming back looking for episode 30 after episode 29. It's just, and it hurts to think that, but you have to realize, oh wait, no one cares, and while that's tough, it is good to remember, because it'll save you from wasting some time and some heartache. So there's the bonus tidbit there.
Okay, so back to like video for business for a minute. It takes people to make good videos, and to make really good videos, it usually takes quite a few people. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that for the uninitiated to production, who have no idea the difference between a director and a director of photography, what other people might be milling about on the set. Tell us a little bit. Okay, so like Coca-Cola hires you tomorrow to make a giant.
Before that, it'll happen again.
So they want you to make this giant video. What's your ideal? Like tell us who's on your ideal crew, like who you have on set. And then, okay, for like the startup guy who has a kind of a tight budget, he's like, I need to make a good video, but I can't afford to hire, 30 people to be on set. So give us kind of like a range of like the ideal versus here's what the bare minimum, what you need to get it done.
Absolutely. The more people, the better. And I say that in general from, things that are planned out. The first thing is you need some very solid a producer or producers, which you guys obviously have played that role. And again, I'm not going to say producer and then walk out of the room. Producers those are going to be usually your subject matter experts. Those are the people that are usually you are making the video for the most part, and they have an even broader context of the video from, say, the director. They're thinking about, all the way back, forward to the marketing, they're really thinking about everything, kind of in an umbrella sense. The next thing under that, you definitely need to have a director, and if basically, and that's the role I love filling. Someone who's going to keep, who has every part of the project under their hat and is moving everything forward. And right in line with them is the director of photography. That's usually the person who is running camera and lighting everything. And of course, that could be an entire department where you could have multiple people running camera and multiple people lighting. So that's usually the high level thing there. And there can be a lot of people working under all of those folks. But that's the stuff. But the stuff that really makes the difference is when you have somebody like what we would probably call, a showrunner, someone who is really purely doing logistics, because everything else shuts down when your director and producer are trying to also keep everything in line. Because what really works, here, I'll finish out the list. A showrunner, people doing hair and makeup, people who are making sure that everybody's fed well, and all the way down to you can have multiple people working under those people to make sure all that happens. The key to having a lot of people on set is so that everybody can kind of focus on their area, right? Because if we don't have a showrunner keeping things set and nobody keeping anybody fed, you're gonna have hungry, distracted people who can't focus on getting the lighting right or getting the right thing from an actor or making sure that we're hitting this moment right. That's what more people does for you, other than just blow your budget up. It really does allow, and that's where a good video you can have a lot better chance that it's going to be a great video, because you're really focusing on getting it done. To go to the other side of that, where I've worked for a long time as well, is the bare bones. And what you need for that is I would say, well, the absolute minimal is one person. We're talking about businesses who are trying to get a video done. You need one person. You as the business owner, you are the producer. That's congratulations. You're a producer now. You know what. In general, you know the service you're trying to do, you know the truth of what you can provide, what you can't, what might separate you, what might not, what you're willing to promise, what's going to be said in the video, that's yours, and how you want to be pictured. What you want is one other person who can kind of jack of all trade of everything, who can get things lit, who can get things on camera, who can help direct and everything and partner with you while you're trying to make sure it's going in the right direction. And if that sounds like a lot, it is. It's a lot for everybody, but that's as we try to hone down the budget, it gets a little tougher. And that's why starting from the beginning and really trying to conceptualize and thinking about what are we trying to do. If you're on a tighter budget, the good thing is to simplify. Really simplify things down to your message, so that you're not trying to, do we really need this tracking shot of the guy walking through the warehouse while he's talking to that? So we have to have a way to move the camera and do all this and have all this stuff and all this entire warehouse lit. Maybe that's not the best way to go. Maybe just sitting in. And those are the kind of decisions and conversations to have. Anyway, so that's the extreme of the crew and the sets. But man, coming from the latter and doing the former, it is such a treat. It's very for a creative person, it is very freeing in your mind. It's almost, you can feel yourself just kind of relax, because you see everything that's happening that you've had to try to manage on your own, and really your only job is to just focus on whatever's in front of you. And everybody says that. When I get to work with my brother, he loves it because he really likes, he of course is a great director as well. He really likes, he can just focus on the lighting, and he knows that the rest of the stuff is my job. And I feel the other way around. I don't have to worry about the lighting. We can both, we can talk about it and everything, but after that, I don't have to worry about it. I just go focus on what I'm trying to do. And that is, it is a treat. And worth it. Definitely worth it.
I remember our first production, the first one where we ever had dedicated grips. It was like,
yes.
We are never doing anything without grips again.
Never again.
They are worth their weight in gold.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, we would carry all the junk in, and we're trying to talk to while we're. I mean, it was insane, and of course, we had to make, budgets work and things happen, but man, it's just, it changes everything.
So these days, don't want to get too in the weeds on equipment and things like that, but what's your go-to, camera, lighting, sound setup these days?
Yeah, and so I think this is a good thing to talk about, because eventually everybody's going to ask. So I don't have anything, kind of like movies, I don't have any one thing that I have. I have things that I own, and because I'm too cheap to buy new stuff for like Ellie's Garage, I have my workhorse camera and I'm keeping that set until it dies. I'm not changing anything. But usually when I'm going on set, we're either renting equipment and that type of thing. So what I like doing is nowadays there's no reason not to be shooting in 4K. It's just not necessarily that you're going to deliver that way, but it gives you so many things. There's no point in even talking about it. And I've really liked. My everyday camera is a Canon. If you want to know details, it's a Canon C70. I think that's a great 4K camera, but also Panasonic. I had worked with their EVA or EVA camera, EVA 1. It's a treat to get to work when we're shooting on a Red. If anybody, if we're renting a Red camera that day, that's great. What I would say, like you were saying, is don't get hung up too much on that. But finding a good 4K solution is that's kind of the way to go. For lighting, it's in general, lighting it's such a tough thing. But if you're gonna have to pick one thing, there's no reason I feel like not to go with an LED fixture nowadays. The LED fixtures have gotten so cheap. If you want to buy something, and actually something I've been using more lately, if you look up Aputure, Aputure lights, they make they make great fixtures. You can get a setup that would cost you a few years ago cost you $8,000 is less than $2,000, and it can light anything, and it has effects, and you can tune it to any color. You can do anything with it. But what I find is better than getting a whole bunch of lights. If you were really restricted, what I would recommend doing is getting one big light. Because with one big light, if I'm doing it, and I typically knee-jerk to doing interviews because that's typically is kind of harder and something that people are a little frightened to attack, but everybody kind of needs to do. If you can take one big light and bounce it into a big white wall or shoot it through a big, cheap, pop-up diffusion thing, you can make a really nice amount of directed light that can kind of help you just kind of create, a look. Where if you have lots of little lights, sometimes it's kind of, I don't really have what I need. Or if you've got a room you just need to light up, you point it towards the ceiling and blast that thing, and you've kind of raised the ambient light in the room. So we could have, a 12-part series of podcasts on lighting, but that's a good place to start. And then for audio, I always find that it's easier if you're doing audio, you can have, clip-on wireless, or lav mics, or you can have, a boomed-in mic. I always like, if I can, to have a physical mic hanging above someone, and you can Google all kinds of stuff on how to do all that. But it's nice to have both if you can have both. But if you don't need to have somebody in motion and moving and that type of thing, get you a wired mic and stick it up there and go for it. Now, if you budget and all that type of stuff, there's lav kits that I think Rode is making now that makes really cool little ones where literally you can just clip it on and make it so easy to turn on and plug and play, and it's so there's a lot to research. Can't take any of that away, but when I'm able to, I really do. I just kind of always like the ease and the cleanliness and the sound I get from a wired mic. So that's kind of my basic go-tos as far as equipment goes.
Yeah, I like what you said about there's no excuse not to shoot in 4K. One of the luxuries that provides is we were talking earlier about when you're trying to pick your platform, and a lot of times we try to shoot as wide as we can because you may have to crop it to different ratios. Like I want a wide and a tall, and if you don't have a high enough resolution, that makes it really hard to do. So I mean, there's kind of a balance, at least for us, because like you have to have the high enough resolution to do that, but our computers, we choke on some of those, like, oh, I shot at 8K, and I'm like, oh, thanks.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It can become an ego thing, but it really is practical at this point. And talking about that and the fun, talk about the fun of staying in your own, about 4K, staying in your own job, and planning from the beginning. When you're talking about something like that where we need to shoot wider, but your director wants a really compressed and pushed look, so I want a longer lens and that type of thing, we're immediately going to be talking with the DP, and we're all going to get together about, well, this has to be a wider shot. Well, I want it to be compressed. Well, we're going to have to back up 100 feet to use the long lens and get a wide shot but still have the right look and everything. And the fun of that is having that conversation, way before we ever even showed up on set. To where when we were scouting, we know that this is gonna be a really long shot because I want it to look like this. I want everything back there out of focus and everything because we don't like what's back there. We've got to shoot it in this spot, but I've got to have it look like this way, and it's got to be wide. That's the really fun stuff to talk about way before and not stress about when you get there. Because every time you get there, there's more stuff to figure out. But yeah, that's the fun of preparing and thinking about where you're going.
So I think that's a pretty good segue because our phones shoot in 4K now.
Yep.
So what's like bare minimum? Like I'm just getting started. I need to shoot a video this week. How should I do that with camera, light, sound?
Exactly. There you go. Camera. You've probably got one in your phone. As far as light goes, if you're trying and you have nothing, natural light is the way to go. Just don't get it with harsh stuff in your face. Soft light is the great way to go. If you can get in a living room where you can have some lighter shades, that are kind of diffuse everything, or if you can just get away directly from the windows. I think half an hour of doing some searching on lighting on YouTube, and you'll be ready to go make a video. Yeah, put and of course put it on something. Don't do this deal unless that's the style you're going for. Think about how you're going to do it. And then, where you do need to think about recording, especially if you're doing something like this, is sound and audio, because good audio can help, sell a video. Bad audio will kill a video. Absolutely kill it. You could have a semi-decently, shot okay video that's got good audio and you're doing all right. But man, you have a gorgeous video and the audio sounds like they're sitting in a tiled room, from 10 feet away. It's not going to work. So the idea is, like we were talking about with audio, is get that mic close. You're going to have to find a mic and something to record it. But for not too much money, you can even get a standalone recorder, get a mic plugged into that. You can monitor it or have somebody monitor it separately. And it is not, again, another 10 minutes of YouTube searching and study, and you'd be able to get into whatever editor you're using and sync up that video with your newly recorded audio, and you're off to the races. So yeah, whether that's little, cheap lav kits or a mic you can get on there. But that's the places to start from, and then get some videos under your belt and go from there. But it might not even that's if you're trying to do interview stuff. A lot of times, lighting wise, just about in any environment, these things, they have put more than a little engineering into them, where they can handle just about any lighting setup and that type of thing, and they're going to kind of usually maximize what you're lighting and that type of thing. And you can really get in the weeds there too. There's apps where you can really selectively control, the aperture and so you can get about as deep as you want, but those are the real basics for getting started.
So for apps, like you mentioned, we use Filmic Pro.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually using Filmic Pro right now, right here. And for those little clip-ons, the Rode Go's, those go into iPhone, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rode Go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are those the kind of bigger ones that have it's almost like a little clip that just clips on? It's like mic and transmitter.
They clip on, but they've got the little 3.5 millimeter if you want to run a clip-on MOV to it. Get you a wireless setup, and it's pretty inexpensive for iPhone. I mean, it's great.
Yeah, and you can trust me, if you're willing to just sit and learn a little bit online, you can do it. And we'll talk more about that, but it's just get out there and try it. Go mess it up a few times and then go shoot your video.
That's good. Well, Matt, give me a tip that's like a quick win. So the small business is trying to do this. What's something that's going to be a best practice or a quick win that they can utilize? Whether the floor's open, whatever you want, from getting something out of talent or editing or what you got?
In general, from the conceptualizing standpoint, when you're planning stuff and brainstorming, find other creative, smart, funny people and brainstorm your idea with them. And the way to do that is, like a producer or director, have an idea of where you want to go and a vision where you want to go, but have the hills you're gonna die on, the things that we can't say this and we must, but be willing to flex. Don't don't have those blinders on and to beat things down. To bring those other people that again, are creative, smart, funny, and listen to ideas and be willing to change and to rethink some things, because you'll be surprised if you'll let the reins go just a little bit. Again, you have to stay true to what you're trying to do, but you'll be surprised how much better something can become just by brainstorming it with other people. Again, always start with that idea of what's our goal, what's our audience, but bring those people in. From a shooting and lighting standpoint, this is, again, so broad, but I think some of the big stuff is if you're going to shoot somewhere and you don't work there or you're not there, and even if you do, go look and listen. Look around for where you're going to shoot this, and look beyond where you're going to shoot to make sure that there's nothing you're missing there. Also, look around and look beyond, because if you do have a camera where you can focus that lens down, a lot of stuff that you would think is going to be bad sometimes kind of goes a little soft, and you might actually be able to shoot something you wouldn't have thought you could. And listen. If you're going to record audio in there, just stop for a second, because you've walked through this, that warehouse space a million times, but have you ever stopped and tried to listen like you're a microphone? Because you'll be surprised sometimes. The massive air conditioner, that's sitting over your head, or that big, slatted fan that's up, that you could turn off if you wanted to, but you hear it so often, you don't hear it. So look and listen. And when you're shooting, shoot like an editor. Picture yourself on the back end having to put all this together. So if I'm going to get some extra footage that I'm going to layer in on top, and it's going to be of somebody doing something, make sure you get enough of that. Sometimes, you think, oh, that's all I need. No, get more of it, so that, at the end when, you're trust me, just get more. If you're doing interviews, have somebody say their name and their title that you'll want at the bottom. Have them say that while you're recording it, because trust me, when you record 8 people and you forgot to get all that and you don't have it, you're gonna have to at least to go ask people and that type of thing.
I've seen you do this too, and it's not that you're using it in the video, it's that you've got them saying it and spelling it, and exactly. now I didn't have to write it down or anything like that.
Thank you. Not just saying it, but spell your name and say your title and all that kind of stuff.
I just called him Denim McMustache. What was that guy's name?
That's gonna stick, isn't it? That's gonna stick.
And when you're shooting interviews, just go ahead and get footage of them coming in and sitting down. You never know what stuff you might be able to use. The biggest thing if you're kind of running things and you're directing, the biggest thing and my favorite thing to do, I think, is get people on board. Give people that you're working with who are on camera, whether they're professional or not. I work with both, but I really like working with non-professional talent, people who are literally working there and they're going to be on camera. Get them on board. Tell them, what this video is about. Tell them the stuff that you've spent all this time conceptualizing, who it's about, where it's going to go, what the whole purpose of what you're trying to do, because that helps them out a lot. Because now they kind of feel like, oh, so when you're talking about things, everything's going to make sense. When you talk about what you're either needing from that scene, or if it's an interview, you're talking about, well, this is a video about whatever this is. It gets them on board, makes them feel a part of it. If you're editing, watch everything. That's your job as the editor, is to watch all of it. You have to watch all the footage. You are the person who should know all of it, so you have to watch all of it and log all of it. There's no just kind of, piecemealing and going and pulling out. But yeah, and when you're editing, don't make major changes until you create a new version. So when you're editing on your timeline and you're going to make a big change and everything, that's the time to create, number 3. Duplicate that number 3, and now make all your big changes. Because I guarantee you, what's going to happen is they're going back and they say, "Well, hey, we went back on this version." Yeah. So
it's like when you save your game before you play the boss.
Right. Yes. Always save right there. And then the last thing on editing is when you're editing footage and everything, cut right before some piece of movement happens. Cutting on movement. And if you watch stuff, you'll see that every time when a scene cuts or something, there's something movement. We it's video. We want to see movement. So that's another editing tip. Those are my big wins across kind of all the different spectrums.
That's great. Okay, so real quick, resources. So where can people go for stuff like rentals, software, education? Like, what are your favorite go-to resources?
It's not too hard to go online and find rentals for whether you're doing camera, lights, whatever. Make sure it's pretty well reviewed. But the other thing is, don't miss out on the idea of look in your kind of local or regional area. There are rental houses, and you might not even realize it. And those people might be willing to give you even a little bit of a better price. Or you have a little more contact where you could get a little more help in what you're trying to get. That's my biggest thing as far as rentals go. When you're buying, I still find it hard to find anything better than B&H. Purchasing, so bhphotovideo.com. So that's my main thing. Finding voiceover talent, I haven't had to in a little while, but there's a site called Voice123 that I use for a long time. When you're trying to find voiceover talent, you can submit a script, all free, and you can get voiceover auditions literally reading your copy, and that's one of my favorite things to do. So yeah, that's my thoughts on resources.
Cool. Well, Doof, we appreciate the time. If people want to keep up with you, if they want to find out more about you, learn more about you, where can they do that?
So they can definitely check out the latest recurring work. If they want to go to Ellie's Garage on YouTube, they can definitely check that out. But also they can search for me, Matt Dufilho, on YouTube. I usually keep a running list of finished projects and that type of thing there. Or feel free to email me at mattdufilho@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining
thanks,
us, Matt. Really appreciate it. This was great stuff.
Good stuff.
And as we always say when we close out the show here, scrum-diddly-doo.
Hey!